But the awareness then of the triumph of Christ is something that we just have to relate to in order to see where we are and why the things like that are happening will be happening more in your lives than they were in my lives, and more in my life than they were in my parents' life. And they're going to happen more, much, much more. And because God is going to use the younger people now in a way that he didn't need and chose not to use then your grandparents. You know, there were just other things around. So the first thing I think is really then to see that we don't take the devil seriously enough. Now it's hard. It's so hard because we can't imagine a being so bright, so marvelous, with natural gifts, that he can deceive geniuses by the means into believing that he's equal with God. How can that be? Now, we know just a couple of things. First, we know that they didn't see God. Because once you see God, that's heaven forever. Once you see God, you're lost in him forever and ever, in the most holy Trinity. Okay. Then what? Then, because they didn't see God, somehow or other then, these great, great lights turned away from God. Jesus said of Lucifer, Satan, that he was a murderer and a liar from the beginning, which surprises the life out of me and puzzles me. But anyway, then he cried out that he would be like God. Now, once then they said that, there's no turning back. You see, they live in a world in which then we can only project by thought some of the characteristics, and we really can't enter into it. Like what? They can't change minds. Well, why can't they change their minds? So that if Jesus would walk down into hell and say, today, because of the prayer of these young people, all of you can come to heaven, they'd say, don't go to hell, Jesus. Get the hell out of here. They hate him. And their hate remains. Why does it remain? Because once they knew something, they would know it forever. See, we change our minds because we feel differently, but they don't have bodies, and so they can't feel differently. We change our minds because we learn something new, but they don't have minds, and they don't have brains. They just have this superior knowledge, which is always there. Once it's there forever. And so when they make a decision, their energy and their power in which they make this decision surpasses maybe all of the energy of everybody in the world. So it's forever and against God. When then they come and they tempt then our first parents and they lead them into sin, then it looked then like they won. And so if anybody then read Paradise Lost, you know, the blind English poet Milton, what he does is he's got Satan as sort of a majestic guy going around earth, hiding. And finally he finds the God. And when he deceives him, he lets out this enormous yell, like, I got you, God. I got you. And so out of this fall, then God is going to send in Jesus. But when he comes, he has to challenge. It really is the Three Musketeers. You did what? And the guy takes off his glove and he hits the guy in the face. You know, okay, it's a little theatric, but it really is. So that when Jesus comes and he wants them to challenge Satan, because as Satan then said to Jesus when he took him up, all this belongs to me. And I'll give it to you if you just bow down to me. I'll get out of everybody else's way if you bow down to me. Okay. Now, so Jesus then comes and he has to then fight against them. So he challenges him. So what are the tools of the devil? Two. Always two. Sin, death. Sin. Sin because it's a poison, a treason, an act against rebellion, against the Creator, against the life giver. Death because God is life. Life. Light, love, all of these things. And death is complete antagonism of all those things. So when we finally come and Jesus then comes for us, he has to take then to himself what? Sin and death. Who? You're wonderful, but your sin is there. And this beautiful lady is wonderful, but her sin is there. My sin is there, and it's like spitting in Jesus' face. And he's taking it all. He's taking each one of us right into himself. So much so, the very words they used this morning. He who knew not sin, God made sin for us. So he dies. Now, why then does Satan challenge him? He challenges him in sin and death. Why does he challenge him? Because Satan hears that Jesus believes he is God's son. He believes that. He can hear that. But is he? And the thought is, he can't be. He can't be for two reasons. First, because God can't die. And secondly, because he can't humble himself to do that. So what he sought then to know and to learn, he doesn't. So if there could be any day in the history of the universe in which there's joy in hell, it's the Friday we call good. Because the prophet of light is gone. And the healing forgiver is gone. And there is no response from death. It's part of the kingdom of hell. And Jesus has entered into it. And therefore, he is not who he thought he was. And whatever he could do is now ended. And so then we wait in these days. Then early in the morning, the women went to the tomb. Oh, roll back the stone. It's already rolled back. Two men in dazzling robes. Why do you look for the living among the dead? He's risen. And by that fact, all that were with him in the curse of death, in the spit that I did in his face, in the nails that we put into his hands, in the thrust of the lance into his side, all of that, or the scourging and the crowns, all of that is now in glory. And he's taken each one of us through death into glory, into his life. He's risen. And he's just waiting there, for someone to come up and hold him and say, "Oh, Jesus, you're so great. And you did this for me." And so now then, what remains then is that on the night of Easter, Jesus is like that. You know what he's like? He's like the pirate chief. Now, does this guy use bad examples or what? Well, how is Jesus like a pirate chief? Well, when the pirates, when they capture a ship, especially they capture one of those big Spanish galleons, and they got all gold and silver and jewels, what do? They open it up and they, here, take whatever you want. It's all yours, right? And so that's what Jesus says to us. Take whatever you want. It's all yours. And where does he give us these things? The sacraments. Through baptism. When your brothers were baptized, you were there. You saw it. You heard it. Did you believe it? Did you believe that God the Father really came through Jesus and said of your brother there, Michael, "I'm making you the image of Jesus. And therefore I'm going to love you forever. And therefore whatever belongs to Jesus belongs to you, Michael." You knew that, right? Sure you did.